Welcome to the Kissing Spine podcast. How nice of you to join. In this podcast, I discuss several topics around kissing spine, like what kissing spine is, the different medical treatments, the function of different body parts, functional and dysfunctional training techniques, saddle fit, and a whole lot more. All put together to help you support your horse with the kissing spine. I wish you a lot of fun listening, and if you like this podcast, make sure to become a subscriber so you won't miss any of my episodes. Welcome to the second episode of the Kissing Spine podcast. And in this episode, I'm going to discuss with you the journey that I had with my Arabian Thoroughbred mare Pura. She was the horse that made me go on this path of kissing spine and how to train the back of a horse, and I just learned so much thanks to this horse, and she is such a significant part of learning and experiencing, and she was pretty much the horse that brought me on this path. So since she's so important, I feel that the first thing that I have to do is share my journey about her. So Pura came into my life about 8 or 9 years ago. I was about 23-ish when I boarded my American quarter horse mare at a small yard near Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And basically what happened is that she was a really angry mare. I didn't like her at all because she would attack you over the stall door. She was very nervous. She was pregnant at the time. And in general, she was just a really nasty mare. That's how I saw her. That's what I thought of her. And, you know, over the time that she was there, she was owned by this girl that wouldn't pay her bills. So in the end, Pura became property of the yard owner then. And when that happened, I started helping, training her a little bit. She gave birth already. We figured out that she was full with red bloodworms, and we couldn't treat her just yet because she was still lactating for the foal. So, you know, we had to wait a little bit before we started treating the red bloodworms. And when her foal was about 3 months old, I started doing some training with her, like a little bit of lunging, and then I just threw on my Western saddle and I just started riding her the way I knew how to. At a certain point, the yard owner decided that in order for her to be able to stay, she needed to make money, or at least enough money for her to provide in her care. So we put her up for lease, and she was leased by this very nice young girl who wanted to do endurance riding. She worked with her. I was teaching her. Another girl was teaching her as well. And at a certain point, that girl decided that she wanted to have her own horse because she wanted to be an endurance rider. And they decided that Pura was not going to be the right match because she was already showing quite some weird behavior. Like, she was not the best jumper. She would throw you off. She would just start bucking out of nowhere. And, you know, we just thought it was playfulness, or because the girl at the time was not that much of a skilled rider at that time. So, you know, we didn't really see anything bad in that behavior. In the end, she bought a different horse. I'm still in touch with her mom. Actually, she's the one that shoots a lot of pictures of me for the website and for my social media channels. And I don't know. I just felt that at the time they were not giving this horse enough credit because after she gave birth, she turned in a whole lot calmer and sweeter horse. Later, I figured out why she was so angry and so annoyed and so nervous all the time. Because you can imagine that if you have a kissing spine, and you're carrying a foal and you're not really trained, that the weight that's hanging on the belly is pretty much pulling the spine down. So just carrying the weight of the foal inside her was already really uncomfortable for her. So these anger signs and attacking over the stall door and being so really nervous, that was already a sign that something was wrong with her spine. I only realized this years and years later. So at a certain point, she stopped leasing Pura because she bought her own horse, and the yard owner decided that she needed to be sold. And for some weird reason, I really felt that this horse should be with me, or at least that I shouldn't let go of this horse, that I should keep her in my life. And if that meant buying her, then that was the case. She was really good friends with my quarter horse mare that I already had for a couple of years, and that mare was really not this most social type. So that she had a friend that she would look up to and she would hang out with, and that was really an important part of the decision making, that this horse should stay with me. So I took the jump. I paid 800 euros for her, and she became mine. I all of a sudden had two horses. I was a very young girl. I just started my own business, and I had some more money flowing in, so I figured, I can afford this. So what happened is, at first I just gave her a little time to come into a better health without training. So, I took care of the red bloodworms, and I just gave her some time in the field to regain her strength and just relax a little bit. And then, I just figured, I purchased her as a friend for my quarter horse and as a very expensive lawnmower. But something in me just really got, motivated, or I really wanted to try to make something out of this horse. So, I got back on, and while before the canter was quite okay, the canter became really a struggle. And, as an old trainer, I did 70% of my training in canter. So that I couldn't canter her really didn't make any sense to me. And it was really frustrating because that meant that I couldn't train her the way I knew how to train. And really, I was a very cocky, strong-minded, stubborn, annoying little person that just was so arrogant that I felt like, I'm going to ride this horse straight. I'm not going to do anything else. I know what I have to do, and, I'm going to fix this. Little did I know. So what happened is that instead of improving, she would get worse at such a point that she couldn't even canter in the field anymore without cross cantering, bucking, jumping. But a normal, relaxed canter, even in the field, was really impossible to her. So while she seemed healthier, her coat became better. She started shining more. She got into a better mood as well. There was just something about the muscles around her back that wouldn't really develop. Like, she was really unmuscled. So I figured out after the 1 millionth bolt and stressy ride that it was time for me to go look for a way to train the horse's back. So what did I do? I started Googling. That was already there at the time. So I started Googling how to train the back of a horse. And I was very disappointed that there was so little information out there that actually made sense to me. So I'm a little bit of a nerd. I really want to understand how and what needs to be done and why. So if you look for a human being, like I want to train my core, you will find a million exercises, like what you have to do, what kind of movement, and why this has such impact, and whether to take it fast, take slow, use weight, etc., etc. So this is the kind of information that I was looking for when it comes to training the back of a horse, and I really couldn't find anything. Mind you, I didn't know back then that she had kissing spine. That came a whole later down the journey. So at a certain point, I came across the website of a Dutch lady who was teaching classical dressage. All right, so I was a reiner. I wasn't not really looking for dressage lessons, but the information that she had on her website really made a lot of sense to me. Like that was more or less the kind of information that I was looking for. Like how does the mechanics of the body work, and how do you really get that back to become strong, and how do you train those muscles, and what needs to happen for everything to come together. And I found that in her website. What were the contents of the website, I will share in another podcast. I will not do that right now. So I sent an email to this lady explaining, like, I have two horses. I have an American quarter horse and I have this Arabian thoroughbred mare that just I want to train her back and I need help. And your information seems solid, so could you please come? So she did. I already started practicing a little bit, but I still was working from the saddle. And I had a saddle that, truth be told, in hindsight, didn't really fit her well. So everything I did sort of made it worse. Like the training didn't suit her, the saddle didn't fit her, and the exercises that I was doing just didn't improve her. So this lady came and she started explaining more stuff than that was on her website. And she was explaining to me, like, you really need to stretch the top line. You really need that spine to be pushed up. So I started doing these exercises with both Pura and with my quarter horse, Nikki. Annoyingly enough, Nikki, my quarter horse, really started to improve. So I changed my training while I was in the beginning of my show season that year. I started changing my training to 60% dressage and 40% reining maneuvers, more or less. And that horse within a year just changed so incredibly much in her movement, in her collection, in the way she was using her body, but also in the quality that she was doing the reining maneuvers. But Pura, she just stayed behind. She would be still fleeing. She would still be restless. She would still be unreliable. Like she would be feeling relaxed one moment and then just jolt off another moment. And while my trainer was saying to me, like, listen, you should start with this horse lunging, like you need to get off, you really need to start developing the back of this horse without the weight of the rider because she clearly cannot handle it. I said to her, like, listen, I said already, this is what I told her in the beginning already. Like, listen, you know, I worked for big trainers. I had days that I was lunging 20 horses a day. I'm not going back to lunging. I'm going to ride this horse straight. But after that year, I sort of had to conclude that while Nikki was really developing, Pura was just getting worse. So it took me a couple of weeks and then I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to put my ego aside. I'm going back to lunging. Here we were already a year and a half in a journey with her. So I first made it worse. And then at a certain point I decided, okay, maybe I should not ride this horse. Maybe I should train her from the ground first. So while I knew what kind of image that we were looking for, I lunged her for about 9 months altogether. I lunged her with side reins. I lunged her with no aids. I lunged her with a shambone. But she still just wouldn't stretch completely down and out and really relax her body. She would stay stuck. And I had body workers out and, you know, the whole shebang. But she just wouldn't. So after 9 months of lunging, my trainer said to me, like, I know you don't want to go back another step, but, you know, you've been trying this. Maybe you should take it back and, like, really start at step 1, you know, like, really explain her from the beginning how to use her body. So, obviously, my stubborn ass just was a little bit, you know, I don't want to do this. I already went a step back. Like, do I really need to take another step back? Like, why isn't this horse improving? Like, what's wrong with me? I really became insecure. I really felt uncomfortable, but I already sort of had accepted that maybe I wasn't able to fix this horse. And I started accepting that I was never going to be able to ride this horse. So, you know what? If I'm never going to ride this horse ever again, I might as well just do the work in hand. So I had my trainer come out again, and she started explaining to me the work in hand. And after about 4 to 5 sessions of practicing the work in hand and really helping her step by step understand how she has to move her body, I felt her relax for the very first time. It was like this heavy load was flowing out of her body, and she was just really moving softly and relaxed and yet active. She was really willing to move. And this sensation, I really only have one word for it, and that is addictive. That flow of relaxation, it almost feels like a trance, and it's just the most amazing feeling ever to have with a horse. And feeling that for the first time really felt like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So slowly, after some time doing the work in hand, I slowly started to reintroducing the lunging, and the lunging actually started to improve. She was not really active, but she was very flowy and soft through her body. So that was already a whole lot better than the fleeing, running, overactive horse that it was before. So I got to fit her out just to see the saddle that I was having, whether that would be a fit for her. And she said, this saddle has never fitted on this horse, and this saddle will absolutely never fit on this horse. So after not riding her for almost 2 years, I tried out a saddle, and she was a completely different horse compared to before. In the whole beginning, when I started her, she felt like a 3-year-old without any balance, without anything. And now she felt more solid and more strong, and I only accomplished this by not riding her. And that was a really eye-opening moment. Okay, I can really achieve something while not being on the horse. So at the time, I was already teaching at the riding school while I was boarding my horses, and I had different people in different places that I met throughout the years that got a little bit interested in what I was doing with my horses. And I started training and giving lessons and, implementing this kind of work into my lessons. And every horse that I started doing these kind of things with, they just immediately started to improve. So that was really interesting, but also very frustrating that with these horses, the development went very fast, relatively quickly compared to Pura. And, one of the main things that this journey taught me is to be patient. That if you do the right things, and if you're being patient, and if you're being stubborn in the right way, then the work you're investing is definitely going to pay off. So about 4.5 to 5 years after I purchased her, I started really reintroducing the riding into our training schedule. So after every session, I would do work in hand a little bit to loosen her up, do a little bit of lunging, and then by the end of the lunging, I would get on for 5 to 10 minutes. First just walking, then later on I would add a little trot, and from there I went on. But canter always was a problem for her. She was really unbalanced, she would completely collapse, she would either ball off, but cantering just never really became a part of our routine. But her saddle, she started developing so much that even her saddle wouldn't fit anymore. And the saddle was not adjustable anymore because else the tree would break. Well, that's not something that I wanted. So it got adjusted at a certain point during a clinic in the Netherlands by a trainer called Will Faber from Art to Ride. He was in the Netherlands, and I attended a clinic with him. And he had a saddle fit for life fitter at that clinic to get your saddle checked. Her name is Kriemhild Morgenroth. She is currently having her own saddle line, but in that time she was a fitter for Peter Horobin Saddlery. So even the son of Peter Horobin was there as well, so he adjusted my saddle. But also there, I really was told, like, you're really at the edge of what is able with this saddle and this horse. So about 5 years into the process, I had to decide not to ride her with that saddle anymore. And I tried different saddles, but for some reason, whatever saddle I tried with her, and I really tried, I think, about 20 saddles over the last 4 years, but just any other saddle than the old saddle that I was having, she just refused to move under. So coming to the stage where we are now, I am able to ride this horse at the age of 21, 5 days a week. I'm barely doing any working hand. I barely lunge her anymore, and I do pretty much all the training under saddle. Well, not really under saddle because I ride her with a bareback pad, but I'm doing exercises like shoulder force, shoulder in, yielding, haunches in, half pass, and I'm cantering. And this is just something that feels really incredible because a lot of the big improvements have been made over the last year and a half. There are quite a few significant changes that I made. I changed yards. She was in a 24/7 outdoor paddock with 24/7 pasture time during the summer. But this was not really doing her that good. I'm currently at a yard where she is stabled for half of the day, pretty much 2/3 to half of a day. And she has pasture time, she has paddock time, she has 24/7, she has access to hay, and I put her on shoes, and I started riding her bitless. All these changes together has transformed her tremendously. Oh, and this yard has better arena footing. So because I also had indoor arenas now, whereas before I only had an outdoor arena, I am able to really train her 5 days a week, which is just the best thing for her. I'm having Hex out. She's super relaxed. I can have my cousins on her back, and she's the kindest, sweetest little teacher that you can ever imagine. I went swimming with her not too long ago, and she loves going out and going on an adventure. And I go on a bareback pad and I go bitless. So this horse, where I have plenty of people telling me after being on her and being launched off that they would not ever, even if I'd give them €1,000,000, that they would get back on the back of this horse. She is now the most sweet, reliable creature that you can ever imagine. And she's a joy for me to ride because she's still a challenge. And she's the sweetest little creature for kids and inexperienced riders that I put on her back. Long story short, this horse will never be a competition horse. This horse will never be able to do a proper dressage test. But this horse is still a joy to work with. And what I would like you to take from this story is that maybe you had very high sports ambitions. And if you really want to pursue that and you have a horse with quite severe kissing spine, you might need to let go of that part. Interesting thing though is when I figured out what kissing spine is, because I joined a training group called Art to Ride. Excuse me. And at a certain point, a few horses in that group got diagnosed with kissing spine, and I started reading up what kissing spine was all about and what the signs are that you need to look out for kissing spine. So I started reading about this. Then I contacted my vet, and I spoke to him about the signs that I learned that was kissing spine and the signs that my horse was giving. And he came to take a look at my horse, and he literally said to me, I don't even have to get x-rays because it's very clear that this horse has a kissing spine. And if you want, I can get x-rays, but you would just spend your money on seeing how severe it is while you're already doing, you're already in the process of proper rehab. So that's pretty much how I figured out that my horse had kissing spine. And I was already in the middle of the rehab process. I was already doing the work in hand. So for me, it didn't make any sense to do any further digging into her body. What I am going to do, if the day comes that she's going to pass away, I do want to do a dissection on her body to really find over the years all the stuff that is inside her body that's good or not so good. That would be really interesting. But for me, having this horse, it's been the greatest gift of my life. And it sounds really strange if I explain it this way, but thanks to her, I really started looking differently at the body of the horse, how to properly use the body of the horse, how to help the horse gain confidence back in their bodies, how to explain them how to do the exercises, how to move thoroughly through their bodies, and I also learned how to help other people in their process with the kissing spine. And it's just simply over the years, I just came across this condition so many times, and I came across so many horses with back issues that I just became really passionate about helping people and helping horses with the kissing spine diagnosis. So, well, that was in a sort of short version how I got in touch with kissing spine and the journey that I had with Pura. And she had a stroke last December 2021, and I really thought for a moment there that I would lose her, and I'm really, really grateful that she's still with me, and that I can still enjoy her presence and can enjoy learning from her every day. And I hope that with your kissing spine horse, although maybe having the diagnosis now might feel like your world collapsing and the worst thing that could ever happen to you, I hope that one day you can look at it the same way I do and see it as a big life-changing experience and a whole learning experience, and all for the good and for the better. So let me finish up this episode here before it becomes too long. But yeah, this is my journey with Pura, and if I can do it, I'm quite confident that you can do it as well. If you really want to get started now on the rehab with your horse, I have the Rehab to Ride course, which has all the information that you need to get your horse started in the rehab process. How to build up a baseline of strength, how to start the exercises in hand, how to build up through lunging, how to get back into the saddle, how to check if your saddle is still fitting, etc., etc., etc. There's a whole lot of information in there. So you can find it on www.sdjhorsetraining.nl. You can also find it on my social pages like Instagram and on Facebook. If you're looking for a community to feel welcomed and supported with other people who have horses with a kissing spine, I have a Facebook group called the Kissing Spine Rehabilitation Training with SDJ Horse Training. So look up that group and join us and share your questions and your experiences with us. For now, thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you will be there the next time. I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse.